Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. The end of another week, the end of another poll. We've got an absolutely astounding win for California Free State for Shadowrun. Now as usual, I'll cover that on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been told know to find their own truth. Now these are amazing people who help support me while I make the kind of videos I want to make, rather than the ones that the YouTube algorithm tells me that I should be making. And it's this freedom I so much appreciate and thank them from the bottom of my heart. Now if you'd like to join them and help support the channel, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd like to see one of the other levels of patronage we've got, then there's a Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at California Free State. So, this is California Free State, which has a sourcebook for Shadowrun. Came out in 1996 by FASA. And, pretty descriptively enough, it's a sourcebook about the California Free State, which is part of North America, but one which has broken away from the successor nation to the United States of America, the United Canadian American States. When the Great Ghost Dance was done, which formed the Native American nations, destroying all nuclear weapons, defanging the superpowers, and changing the terrain vastly, causing vast new forests to be created, etc., across much of North America. California was cut off and surrounded by Native American states. Also to the south, it had the newly born nations of Aztlan, run by Aztechnology, threatening its borders. So it's separate from the UCAS, but it's also fragmented itself, because San Francisco, for example, when being threatened by Aztlan, called in help from the Japanese corporations and their government. So somewhat is ruled by Japan. But you've also got parts which would like to become part of the UCAS again, but form the United States of America. There's people that value their freedom, and other people that kind of like the Native Americans, and other people who hate the Native Americans, and especially the Tiangai, which has threatened the borders of the California Free State. So there's a whole load going on. Anyway, the back cover. Land of Sun, Fun and Run. Which California coming to for biz, chummer? Central Valley, ground zero of the water wars between small farmers and big corps. Green and gorgeous North California with 1,000 mutually hostile small towns and crack tier troops stepping right up to the tripwire. Or try your luck along the Big Sur coastline. You can either die from environmental poisons or get carved into tiny pieces by the pirates and smugglers who own the place. Or how about Los Angeles, where rich SimSense stars and even richer producers live just the other side of a plascrete wall from starving orc kids and strung-out chipheads? Still think the Golden State is a great place for their Shadowrun? California Free State Sourcebook describes the country of California. It features the movers and shakers, the hot spots, the war zones, the strange magic, and the deep dark shadows of this independent nation that seem always on the brink of civil war. The sourcebook describes life throughout the Free State, focusing on Los Angeles, San Francisco, and the magic-rich Mojave Desert. A must for any California campaign, the California Free State Sourcebook provides a wealth of adventure hooks, story starters, and rules for using them in your Shadowrun game. Also included new rules for mutant critters, magical oddities, and toxic beings unique to California for use with Shadowrun. Inside, well, it looks very familiar. FASA had their format down par by this point, and it's very easy to read. The art has changed style from the early, and I think the gradients and things on it, while they add a certain richness to the image, I'm not convinced I like them as much as the early artwork. But they're still very, very good. Going through the table of contents, we've got an introduction talking about how to use this book, and then we've got Shadowland. So we've got news, what's happening. The big D, Dunkles and the Dragon, is now a legal citizen of the UCAS. The ballot box. I've covered Super Tuesday before, but Shadowrun had an election which readers of the books were allowed to vote in. We love the California Free State. Weird stuff. So it's giving you a clue on what's coming up in the Shadowrun world. Then we've got the California question. Now this is a point where I would like to address the art. I really don't like this image, although I can see what they were going for. but it really doesn't stand up to the older art. And I have to question the art in this book because, for example, we've got the image of one of the candidates in the American election here, but his name is misspelt on his top. It's Yates without a second E. So the standards seem to have dropped slightly. But anyway, it starts off with a speech by General Yates in his candidacy for the United States, or the United Canadian American States rather, talking about wanting to reclaim California. And then we've got the California Free State governor saying, "Over my cold dead body." And then you've got Shadowrunners joining in, talking about the debate about whether California should remain free or rejoin the UCAS. Then we're into the standard Free State fast facts. So, how to enter the country through air travel, road trips there, train travel, traveling by ship, what ports, the Port of Oakland is a major port for San Francisco. State facts at a glance, population 50 million, 65% is human, 7% elf, 9% dwarf, 14% orc, 4% troll. Regional telecom grid access, and different settlements, which we'll come to later, and their populations. Cost of living, so things tend to be a lot more expensive in California, although you can sometimes get them for less. It's variety. Criminal fines and punishments, what you're likely to get fined for carrying a gun, a knife, etc. if you're caught by the police. And then we've got the rough timeline, which we'll go into more detail as we go through, but detailing year by year the formation of the California Free State. And then we're straight onto a segment, the Northern Crescent. The Crescent's one of the last real places of heaven in the whole state of California. However, it's right on the edge because the Tier Elves are raiding it. So we've got the Tier Tangaya, too close for comfort. I know someone did correct me on how to pronounce that, but I'm still failing. Carrying on through, love thy neighbour unless he's an elf. Native Californians and other vermin. Talking through the danger of this area. It's a border hotspot. Raids are coming over. There's a lot of fear of invasion. And people don't trust themselves a lot. Or trust each other a lot. Nice place to stay, but I wouldn't want to live there. So we've got the free city of Reading. We had the stats for it before. Detailing the city out. Talking about Hestaby, the dragon which menaces the area. The Shasta Enclave. And then we're on to the Central Valley. Now this is a very green zone where lots of stuff is grown. However, you've got lots of tension between the local farmers and the big corporations that just want to take over everything. Trespassers will be beaten, survivors will be shot. Talks about who's in control. The agribusinesses, the Sacramento puppets, other corporations, their involvement, fault lines and flashpoints, where conflict starts, because the corporations are trying to cut off the water to the small farmers to cut them out of business, and of course the local farmers will be hiring Shadowrunners to restore the water. So we've got the water wars going on. We've got reservation lands. How people feel about, with the election building up in the UCAS, how they feel about reunion. Living in a bigot's paradise. Those of you planning on visiting the Central Valley in the hopes of making little cred have to understand one thing. The Valley's a great place if you're human. For meta-humans, things are a lot different. Bad different. So about the racism in the area. And we've got the settlement of Chico Oroville, which I'm probably pronouncing very badly. Lots of information about that city. And then we're on to San Francisco Bay Area. And it talks about how when it was under threat from Aslan, they called in the Japanese. And turning Japanese, then Governor Nielsen Treacle made a hasty decision with disastrous consequences. To be fair, the sport Skag was in desperate straits, kicked out the UCAS, settled with independence he didn't really want, and facing Tyr and Aslan and military forces on the march, he invited in the Japanese. And they've basically taken over. So it talks through all of the things which happened in that time, and then we've got San Francisco today. The cultural protection laws. The economy, the next battleground. The mob war, because of course being controlled by the Japanese, we've got the Yakuza being majorly powerful. The Oakland-Berkeley sprawl. Now, of course, metahuman rights and resistant groups are a major thing because the Japanese don't treat metahumans very well. The People's University, outlying areas, the East Bay Dwarves, detailing lots of stuff, including Silicon Valley. Loads of information about all these, lots by Shadowrunners. Then we've got the Big Sur Coast, which is an incredibly polluted area. There's lots of toxic spirits, toxic shamans in this area because it's so hostile and basically ignored by the government. Smugglers and pirates and things use this area as well. So it's very hostile with violence. So we've got aquaculture, lots of people out at sea. Calamari Incorporated, Aqua Arcana, the Big Sur Pirates Haven, O'Malley's Empire, just detailing groups within it. Then we've got a few colour plates, scenes from the California Free State, some boats being attacked by a giant octopus, people in a surf city, stuffer shack, eating neon sushi, gypsy shamans conjuring spirits of man to protect their tribe, survival of the fittest, Anasazi style, yak attack, so an attack by the Yakuza with like double-bladed weapons. Mountain spirits protect the secrets of the lost mine. A toxic shaman conjures a toxic spirit in a chemical dumping ground near Salinas. And artist's impression of Hestabee, Spawn of Evil. And carrying on back to the Big Sur Coast, finishing detailing out some other groups, Monday of Morro Bay, Dread Pirate Paco, Independent Troops. And then we're on to Los Angeles. So when we're talking Los Angeles, it's split between the SimSense business, so the movie business basically, of the big corporations, and the poor people who are walled off. So we talked through where the better half lives, talking about Studio City, where all the SimSense recordings are made, you know, big movie stars, rich people, famous directors, etc. West Side, Affiliated Artists Incorporated. UCLA, so the university. Fun City, a big chunk of Orange County, again sort of movie related. Then we've got outside the walled enclaves of the oh so rich, life in the City of Angels ranges from middling to extremely grim. The real city, so we've got downtown, East Los Angeles, Harbor and Coast Town. You know, very poor areas, a lot more like the barrens of Seattle. That same image we saw earlier. And then we're on to the Mojave Desert. So this is to the border to the south and threatened by Aslan. So this is a hostile area threatened by another country again, but we've got traveling in the Mojave, populated areas including Palm Springs there, Barstow and the military bases, because obviously Free California keeps a lot of their military to hold off the Aslaners. The desert. Talking about how the desert has various metahuman and meta-animals, I guess they're called. Mutant animals, magical plants, magical hotspots, including the Ubihibi crater. Am I pronouncing that anywhere near right? Northwestern Death Valley. Saratoga Springs, the Lost Mine, Joshua Tree National Monument. And then we're on to the players, the major influences in the area, so corporations. So I've got Affiliated Artists Incorporated, Amalgamated Studios, lots of movie studios, Angelic Entertainment, which is owned by Seda Krupp, Aqua Arcana, Ares. And then we've got the California Raiders and the California Free State Government. Obviously massive influences in their own territory. Fuchi CFS, Golden Acorn Society, Green Earth Society, Mitsuhama, Lockheed, just lots of corporations, but we've also got things like Humanis, which the writers of the document just refused to discuss. Pyramid Operations, part of Aztechnology, Rinraku Computer Systems, because this is before the Rinraku Archaeology shutdown. Terra First, So terrorist groups, militant groups, as well as corporations. And then finally we're on to game information. So Shadowrun in California, including prejudice. While FASA does not want to introduce or promote prejudice at any level, we understand that it is part of the world which we live. Because Shadowrun is based on the real world as well as the cyberpunk future, it makes sense that metahuman prejudice exists in the Shadowrun universe. Which is nice for them to reintroduce it. It was very much a part of first edition, but kind of got phased out over time. We've got the Humanist Poly Club, racial go-gangs, gypsy bands, the Anasazi, the Water Wars, detailing out for the Games Master how all these work, including rules for the way that magic works slightly differently because of everything going on. Spirits, talismongering, we've got Scorpion Shaman, the Anasazi Totem, Spiritual Helpers, the Sacramento Matrix, and then we've got a few unique critters, mainly in the desert, like the Nova Scorpion. But we've got road racers, which are giant road runners, sea leeches, and general rules for mutant critters, how ordinary critters can be mutated and larger and have enhanced abilities. We've got toxic critters, what can happen with the toxic waste to change them. And then we're on to a bunch of maps. So we've got the Northern Crescent, Redding, Central Valley with Chico Oroville, San Francisco Bay Area, the Big Sur Coast, which is very empty, Los Angeles, detailing out the walled off areas, the Mojave Desert. We've got a lovely index, an advert for Black Madonna by Carl Sargent and Matt Gascoigne, both writers who did fantastic stuff with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And we've got a big colour map of California Free State, piecing all the areas together. And that's it. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. It's a very exciting area. But I'm not massively keen on this book. While there's bits which are interesting to visit, I really couldn't see myself basing a campaign here. But it is very, very useful if you're going to have your Shadowrunners going from Seattle to somewhere else and being fish out of water, because the rules are very, very different in California. And that's where I think this book has its use. So that was California Free State, and that won the poll this week with some 40% of the vote, which was way ahead of everything else. Now, I put this in the poll thinking that California Free State is a bit of an obscure book. It's just a world book. It's not one of the big books on cybernetics or magic, which would be really popular. And it's just covering part of the United States. So I thought it'd be competitive against everything else. But no, it absolutely dominated the poll from the first day. So I think I'm going to have to give in to pressure in the future and just put Shadowrun stuff in their own polls, to allow everything else a chance against the all-conquering might of Shadowrun. But that's a problem for the future. As I said, that came in first on 40%. In second place was World Book 8 Japan on 21%. In third place was Road Warriors for Deadlands Hell on Earth on 16%. In fourth place was Arcane Mysteries of Barsave for Earthdawn, which came on 13%. And then in final place was the Shipbuilder's Manual for Babylon 5 on only 10%. Now, I thought that'd do pretty well. It's never been in a poll before, whereas all the others have been, except California Free State. And I've had a lot of fun looking through the Star Trek Shipbuilder's Guide and stuff like that. So I thought it would do far better than last place. But alas, no. Babylon 5 is pretty obscure itself by this point, I think. Anyway, they're all wiped out the poll, and we're going back to a Retro Adventures one. So first up, we've got the Gemini Conspiracy for Star Ace from Pacesetter Games in 1985. Now, Star Ace was one of the first RPGs I got, and I loved it because it's Star Wars with all the serial numbers filed off. You know, instead of Wookiees, they've got bearmen and various other species, but it's a federation of people from a former government who have been conquered by an empire, fighting back and resisting that empire. As I said, very much Star Wars, very much fun. It'd be nice to look at a Star Wars adventure which isn't Star Wars. Second up, we've got Denial of Destiny for the Star Trek role-playing game from FASA. Now, Star Trek Adventures have been absolutely fantastic to cover. It'd be nice to go back to that, but it's in your hands. After that, we've got Mission Arcturus for 2300 AD. A few weeks ago I covered K for Dawn for 2300 AD, and it was a lot of fun, so I decided to move on to another adventure, and we'll see how that does. After that, we've got Orc Busters for Paranoia. Now, Paranoia's always a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun covering the adventures. Let's see if it comes anywhere in the poll, and let's have some fun looking through Orc Busters, which obviously is going to be a kind of hybrid between Ghostbusters and Dungeons and Dragons. And after that, we've got the Fungi from Yuggoth, an adventure for Call of Cthulhu. Now, this is an adventure I don't know much about, but it's traditional 1920s Call of Cthulhu, so it's going to be great. Chaosium does some fantastic adventures. But anyway, it's all in your hands now. Vote and decide what we cover next. What else have I been up to? Well, I've been releasing some books of pirate character classes for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. As I said in previous videos, I'm working up towards having a sort of multiverse of characters who can come together in a setting and adventures that I'm planning to put out. But I'm fleshing out the character classes to give people options first. I'm just about finished the pirate ones, and I'm moving on to the science fiction ones. I've had a whole load of fun coming up with equipment for them as well, coming out with an equipment book, and coming up with nanotechnology enhancements, taking cybernetics to the next level. Anyway, you can find them on DriveThruRPG, which I'll link to down below, or you can get access to all of them through the Patreon if you're a laird or librarian, and we've got a shared Google Drive with all of those, which is coming up to 500 booklets by now. So if you're interested in that, the link for the Patreon's in the description down below, not the description for the Patreon. Getting tongue-tied. Anyway, also on rpggamer.org, I'm covering the Knights of the Old Republic comic series. I'm having a whole load of fun doing that, reviewing and statting and moving through that 50-issue series. And I'm covering The Acolyte, which I'm having a whole load of fun with. Some episodes are better than others, but there's some absolutely brilliant episodes, even though the reaction on the internet seems to have been fairly bad. But I'm having fun with it anyway. But I think I've been waffling on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.